and welcome to the Resilience Sessions, a podcast that brings together injured veterans from Blesma, the Limbless Veterans charity, and a well-known public figure to share stories of overcoming challenges of all kinds.
The podcast provides an opportunity for our guests to chat with one another about their stories, sharing how they overcome their ups and downs so we can learn from them both. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to the Resilience Sessions. I'm Alice Driver and I'm joined by my co-presenter, veteran and Blesma member, Stuart Harris. We're joined today by two very special guests. Kriss Akabusi is a former sprint and hurdling track and field Olympic medalist. Kriss spent his former years in the military before leaving to pursue his athletics career, going on to win Olympic, World Championships and Commonwealth Games medals, setting a British record for hurdles. After retiring, Kriss became a much-loved television presenter. Mat Armitage is a Blesma member, veteran, Making Generation R speaker and professional free runner who spent years touring the globe free running for films, campaigns and for the sheer thrill of it. After a high-speed motorcycle accident in his 20s, Matt had one of his legs amputated, but his recovery was fuelled in no small way by his determination to perform a backflip again. So, welcome Kriss Akabusi. Nice to have you here.
Fantastic. Glad to be here, Alice. Looking forward to working with you, Stuart, and in particular, Matt.
Yes, and welcome to Mat Armitage. It's great to have you here too.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing?
Very good, thank you. Right, so Kriss, over to you first of all, and welcome to the Resilience Sessions. Now, you have had an incredible career, both as an athlete and subsequently in TV. But can you tell us about your childhood?
I was born in London in 1958. Mum and Dad are Nigerians. They came over in the mid-50s as part of the diaspora who were taking advantage of the call to come to rebuild the United Kingdom after the Second World War. And for them, it was great because they were going to come and take advantage of the British education, understand the system, because Nigeria was going through this sort of change where everyone was aware we were going to go from being under the colonial system to having independence. Mum studied to be a nurse, quite modestly. She graduated as a state registered nurse. And my father went to the London School of Economics and studied politics. The reason I tell you all of that is because in 1961, they went back to Nigeria and left me and by now a junior brother in the UK to benefit from this great infrastructure that we all have experienced in our time. But 7 years later, there was a civil war. And the Civil War meant that the money that my mum and dad were paying for private fostering stopped coming. And clearly the people that were taking care of us couldn't look after us anymore. So I went to a children's home. And so from 1967 through to 1975, when I joined the army, I lived in a children's home. And, the children's home was good. 3 square meals a day, got me some clothes, went to school. And a sense that there was people with due care and attention taking care of my growth and development.
And what was school like? Were you a good student?
Oh, I can't tell Porky's.
Here he is.
No, I realise now I was a bit of a nightmare. Look, and the thing is, I went to school. A lot of the other kids from the children's home, they bunked off. So I lived in North London, Enfield. My senior school was in Edmonton County. It was Edmonton County. And a lot of the kids, when we left the children's home, they would jump on the 123 Turnpike Lane, off into the West End, and they'd change their clothes on the way. I went to school. But when I went to school, I was a pain in the bottom. And I know you don't believe that, right? I know it's butter wouldn't melt in my mouth, right? But I was a pain in the bottom because I decided, I cried every day for my mum. And when I realised she wasn't coming, I jettisoned what she and my dad had told me, be a good boy, work hard, study, you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a solicitor, or a teacher. Forget all that. 2 fingers, sorry for swearing, but 2 fingers, I'm going to do my own thing. And I decided to be a clown. And I was great at that. The kids at class used to laugh at the things I'd get up to. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't a bad lad. I would never fight a teacher or be verbally abusive to a teacher. But I'll be a pain in the backside for the teacher. So I don't know if you remember, I don't know if they still exist now, but something called a big pen.
Oh, I know, yes.
Yeah. Right. Well, I was a dead shot with a big pen.
Yes.
So I could chew. Yeah, exactly. And I could chew a piece of paper. And there's a guy called Mr. Moses. He was a very strict Asian mathematics teacher. Very strict. And people would say boo to a goose. Well, except for Akabusi. So I'd get my big pen, hit him in the back of the head. And then when he turned around, the class was in bits. And I was trying to do my work. The chalkboard rubber would come flying through the air, hit me on the head. Moses would eject me and I'd get the cane. And I used to think that, I mean, I was legendary. They'd be talking about me in the playground. Akabusi, did you see him? Mr. Moses, did you see him? And I thought they were laughing with me. But they're laughing at me because I left school with 9 no levels. So they were laughing at me. But there you go, Alice. I was in with my tribe. Yeah. I was in with my group of guys. They loved me, so I thought. And I was making them happy.
Yeah.
So you were in with this group. Did you ever get into trouble with the police? I know you were a bit of a, let's call, character at school, but sort of, you know, with your friends at the children's home, what was it like?
Yeah, I did. Matt's a Scouser, so when I speak to Matt, I'm hoping he's going to top all this stuff because I know Scousers are just, you know, but cheeky. I mean, look,
super cheeky.
I thought Matt was going to say something there.
No comment.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell this one story. Because we did loads of stuff. I mean, we used to go fishing for ducks. Look, please, listen, young people, if you're watching for this, please don't do this. We used to go into town, we used to go fishing for ducks, and we'd put bread on the hook, and we'd throw it in there, and then that's very naughty. But then, it was absolutely naughty. The park keeper, I can see you, would chase after us. But the one story, we were absolutely out of order. But then one day, we all decided in the children's home, right, okay, we're going to go to Woolies and we've got to designate ourselves as workmen. What's your job? What are you going to do? So I decided, okay, I'm going to be a carpenter. So I'm going to go to Woolies and I'm going to nick a load of carpentry tools. Then another guy, he decides that he's going to be a sailor. So how are you going to do that? I don't worry about that. I'll find it out. So we go down there, carpenters, janitors, policemen. We're going to be all these sort of different trades. I go in there. I developed a coat where I'd cut the bottom, so I could put my hand in my pocket and I could sort of like walk past the stalls and just nick things out of my coat.
Wow!
Yeah, ingenious. Anyway, no names, no pat drills. The guy who decides to be a sailor, he walks into Woolies and there's a display of a dinghy, rugby dinghy, up on display. He walks in, nicks the dinghy and walks straight out of Woolies with the dinghy on his head. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, mate, it was just funny. So anyway, the coppers, they found the children's home, they knew where we were, the copper came round, and from that moment I decided to go straight. But a lot of the kids who started doing small things like that ended up doing the real big things, you know, driving and taking away and armed robbery and they all got custodial sentences, you know. So,
but you could have gone down that path. What was it that made you change direction and choose a different path?
Well, I mean, one of the things was that when the copper came into the house, the home, we all got pulled in together. It's pretty obvious. We couldn't deny them. The dinghy was still there.
Can't get away from that thing.
It's not ours.
That's not yours. It's not yours.
How did I get here? I haven't got a clue. So he could, but I took those words seriously.
Okay.
But really, in the end, it was my next career path, and you know, I tell you what, Alice, I'm still mature. I'm 62 years of age. I'm immature as a 62-year-old. But I was immature as a kid. And it was just the realisation that I had to leave the children's home. And I knew that if I'd gone down that nicking path, I'm going to be locked up. I knew I couldn't take care of myself. There's no way I can live in a bed sit. There's no way I can cook them for myself, clean the bed sit. There's no way I can be responsible for that sort of stuff. And so it was joining the army. The army was my saviour. You know, if I hadn't joined the army, I would have been bang in trouble, I know for sure.
Okay. And so that gave you this different path and a direction. And also, was there a family called the Gilchrist who had
the Gillies
influence on your life?
Yeah, oh, fantastic. Well done. I mean, you guys have done so well with your research and stuff. Yeah, the Gillies. So Steve McGuckles was my mate, and he was a bright lad. I mean, I wasn't a bright lad. Well, I was a bright lad, I just didn't engage in school. So I was in the bottom 3 classes always, more often. Well, actually, no, better than the bottom class. I was better in the bottom class.
That's great.
How, I don't know, but I was in the bottom 3 classes. You know, I used to vacillate from 3-2, 3-2. And Gilly was in the top class, and his mum was Scottish, and his dad was Bayesian. But dad and mum had split up. But anyway, mum, Anne McGilchrist, was absolutely diamond. And she'd say, Keezy, my Afrikaner name's Keezy. So Keezy, come to us at the weekends. So I'd go to Gilly's house at the weekends. I'd eat all their bourbons and all their ginger nuts and stuff, and rice and peas and all that sort of stuff that she used to cook. And she was a diamond because I could go there anytime I liked, you know, but mainly in the weekend, and she looked after me. And the thing was, is that when I was about to leave the children's home, and I was really scared, Anne McGilchrist was fabulous because she would take us in. She said, no, Keezy, you've got a home here. You know, we are your family. We'll take care of you. But due care and diligence, social workers said that their house was too small. Mm-hmm. You know, I couldn't be another boy in the boys' room.
What a shame. So much love, and, you know,
no
who
doubt.
cares that you didn't have enough space? But
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
What a wonderful family.
Oh, cheers, Kriss. Yeah. So, Matt, like Kriss, was school similar to you? You know, did you rock up to school? You know, what was childhood like for you, mate?
Actually, really similar. I used to struggle a lot with authority, mainly because they wouldn't help you understand what they were asking you to do, basically. They just kind of tell you what to do and expect you to do it without any reason or rhyme. And I had issue with that because I like to understand things. That's just how my mind works. So when somebody would tell me to do something, I'd do it because I am compliant. And on the odd occasion, I wouldn't bite my tongue, but overall, I was all right in school. I liked it at the time. But then when I got out, I realised exactly kind of what the scenarios and situations that I'd been in school and why, and I further understood why I didn't like them, basically. But that led me on to thinking about what I wanted to do, basically, when I left school, because I like to understand things and how things work. And that eventually led me to go into the army as well.
So as much as I'd love to give you some stick about being an armourer, you know, it's actually not the easiest of trades. How did you come about that? You know, how did you think, I want to be an armourer, I want to mess around with the weapons and the big railguns and stuff? How did that happen?
Railguns would be an interesting one, to be honest, but I went down to the recruitment office and did the tests, and it was basically the top job. When my results came up, that was my top job offer, basically, as an armourer, and I was like, great, it's exactly what I wanted. So that all the films growing up basically influenced me to become the armourer because I wanted to be an action star, basically, minus the acting.
And now we've got a Scouser that knows how to fix automatic machine guns.
Basically,
Terrifying.
Don't get many of them round here, like.
I'll bet.
But Matt, once you'd finished your training, it wasn't kind of a straight path ahead of you, was it? You had issues with, was it your leg?
So I'd been given my my posting basically to Dragoon Guards in Norfolk, and I was doing phys one day and noticed almost like my kneecap was wasn't secure basically, and it felt like there was a lot of fluid around my kneecap. So every time I took a step when I was running, it felt like my kneecap was like halfway down the shin, like just moving up and down. And then I started to get quite a lot of pain in my patellar tendon, which is just under your knee. And it was basically because I ended up getting a diagnosis of Patellar Tendinitis, which is an inflammation of the tendon. And I was a young lad doing lots of phys. I was still growing. Say I'm still growing. I think I stopped at about 10 years old because I'm only 5 foot and a fag butt. So, and the doctors and the physios basically said that my quads and my calves were overdeveloped, and compared to my tendon. So the muscles were just basically tearing the tendon to pieces. And basically the physios they gave me all the treatment, tried to fix me. They essentially made the problem worse, which resulted in me getting a medical discharge.
Okay. And that was the end of the army career.
Yep.
But we know that there was an amazing career that you went on to. But before we ask any more about that, Kriss, just coming back to you. Now, you had decided you joined the army. What was it like? Was it how you imagined it would be?
No, I mean, I was laughing at Matt when Matt said, he saw Arnie and he saw Stallone and all those action movies, and he said, "Yeah, I want to be able to do that, with the weapons." And because it was sort of similar for me, not the movies, but the adverts. So when I joined the army, I absolutely had no idea that you go to war. But actually, joining the army is about killing people. I had no idea. So, for me, I saw travel the world, meet new people, learn a trade, play lots of sports. I mean, what's there not to like?
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah, learn a trade. Oh, yeah, I said that. Learn a trade, and unlike Matt, so I wanted to be a data telegraphist. I couldn't spell it,
right,
but it sounded good. And when I went to do it, correct, it's information transfer. So data telegraphy is about transference of information. So we were precursors. We had tape relay machines, which was and facsimile machines. We had very basic mainframe computers. So there's all of that sort of stuff. But the great stuff was when we used to go on exercise, I would be inside a mobile comm centre with the engine on, nice and warm, feeling good.
Cushy, yeah.
Matt and exactly. Matt and the boys, Stuart and the boys, they're out there. They've got their war paint on, they're digging trenches. But yeah, but I didn't have a clue. It wasn't until '82, the Falklands conflict, that I finally realised, no, mate, you go. I mean, even I honestly, I go to see Matt. I take down my weapon, get the magazines, go out on, training, and see all those lovely little targets. Pop, pop, bang, it comes up. Or we used to have like a machine gun, a very small SMS. What is it? SMS? What's it called? What's that? Like submachine gun? No, SLRs on big ranges. But now we used to do close quarter battles. So we go into sort of like built up areas, and then up pop a target, bang, bang, you're dead, bang, bang. Oh, all great stuff. Me just thinking, this is just good fun, isn't it? We get to play with guns. We're going along big ranges, 600 yards, 300 yards, bang, bang, you're dead. Close quarter, bang, bang, you're dead. Brilliant stuff. And let's go and play some football. Then all of a sudden, Falklands conflict.
Right, okay.
Okay.
It was for real. It wasn't make-believe anymore.
It's not just a trade. All of that stuff is not just a trade. It's the real business, and that was a shock, but one we were trained for and prepared for.
And so did you go out to the Falklands?
Well, no. So what? Yes and no. No. Answer is no. Unlike Matt, I didn't see any real. I didn't see any.
Neither did I.
Okay.
So we're in the same boat there.
Yeah. Stewie, did you go? Stewie?
Yeah. So Afghan, Iraq, Northern Ireland, Kosovo, Bosnia. Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on, fellas. Let's pull up that sandbag, swing the light shade. Yeah. Keep on going, son.
We'll need more time than an hour.
Sorry, my bad.
No, he's a guardsman. In fact, what guards are you?
Welsh guards. Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't you boys.
North
It
Wales,
wasn't.
Anyway.
Okay, it was so look. So the weekend, one weekend, it's a Friday. Colonel comes out. We're all on parade square. There's 800 of us on a parade square, whole battalion. I was with the principals. I was attached to the Principal Regiment of Yorkshire. Everyone's confined to camp. SOP 7, Standard Operation Procedure 7. Go and get your weapon. Check your weapons out. Go and get your dog tag. Make sure that's all all in good working order. Monday we're off ski. That was it. So stand outside the queue because we didn't have mobiles then. Stand outside the queue. Phone the missus. I can't come home. Going to war. And I remember walking around the block, going to the NAFI. Last time I'm going to go to the NAFI. Going to the crutch, the church army, it's where you get your rolls and stuff. First time at the crutch. Going in to get the restaurant. How many more chickens can I eat? And thinking, my gosh, we're off to war. On Monday morning, and what I need to say is, although I hadn't realised, what I did realise is how pretty quickly you get, acclimatised is the wrong word, but how pretty quickly, from the shock of going to war, how prepared I was to go to war. You're with your mates, you're doing all your drills, and you all the 7 years prior to then, I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. Forget the athletics, forget the discos up in Germany, I'm going to war. And so Monday morning, Colonel calls us all out, 800 men, all on parade. Regiment Sergeant Major does this bit, all into tension, bam. See, says, bad news, fellas. My heart sinks. We're not going. They've chosen the Scots to do in Guards. And I was actually happy. The rest of the battalion, they were really upset. They wanted to go. What they've been training for, they wanted to go. But I was happy that we didn't go in the end. But I tell you what, it was such a close call.
Yeah, wowzers. So tell us you mentioned there about your athletics. Is that really where you got serious about it when you were in the army?
If I hadn't joined the army, I wouldn't be an athlete. Okay. Matt mentioned trade training. I've got to say though, Matt, 14 weeks. What is that?
It was 14 weeks basic training. My trade training was almost 2 years.
Yeah. Sorry,
so long, yeah.
Yeah. Now I meant the basic training. Yeah, we did 28. We did 28 weeks, but there you go. Who cares? I just had to get it in. You know when you're a squaddie, you got to get in there. You got to get in.
Swift little move on as well. Yeah. There we go.
Got to be done, boys. Got to be done. Yeah, get the smogs. Get them in, mate. Get the smogs in. So I joined the army and I met a guy called Sergeant Mackenzie. Sergeant E. Mackenzie. He was a troop sergeant. He was a drill sergeant. He was also the army athletics officer. And he'd been in the army team when he was a youngster. And because I was in the children's home and I wasn't going home weekends, he saw me hanging around and he really took me under his wing, brought me my very first set of athletic spikes, developed my training program, entered me into the races in the North East because I was posted to, my basic training was in Newcastle. I mean, Matt said he was in Purbright. It was cold up in Newcastle. I mean, I'm a London boy. I had to go to Newcastle. It was cold. And so did all the training, entered all the races in the North East. And when I started winning, he'll put up on company orders, which is like the modern day intranet, company orders, Akabusi, Army Flyer, wins North East counties, etc., etc. And it really encouraged me. I mean, we all know as well, when you're a squaddie, there's 3 functions: drill, discipline, and dress. And those 3 functions really get you all aligned, all one unit, and you understand about commitment and dedication and going the extra mile. And I think in doing that, as a young junior soldier in athletics, all of a sudden, my athletic prowess was able to show itself. And at the end of the year, I was the Army Junior Champion. And as we've now recognised, I went on to become Olympic silver medalist, world champion, European champion. Can I stop boasting now?
Amazing. Keep boasting. It's great. I wish I could boast like that.
Alice, while you're there, let me just do that as well. Let me get that one up there. Can you
seriously cool.
That's what we came to see. There it is.
Exactly.
That was my very first medal. And I got that after 7 years with Sutton Mackenzie. And I carry around with me every day of my life because it just shows me what I can do if I've got discipline and I'm committed.
I love it. Cool. And it seems like, you know, when you were in your childhood, there was Mrs. Gilchrist. I don't know what her first name was. Who was really significant. And then you had another sort of significant person in your life who helped shape, who sort of took you under their wing a bit and just sort of showed you another way. And clearly you had the talent, the passion, the personality, the dedication to get there. But it sounds as if there was another person just looking out for you. Yeah,
I think it's a very good spot there. I think, you know, I mean, I have magical thinking, and I do.
What's that?
Well, magical thinking is childlike. So I've got a childlike faith.
Okay.
And a magical thinking that it will be all right at night, and my life has been like that. You know, I mean, the kid in the children's home, the way I got to the children's home was on a train from Portsmouth to London. Just took me and my brother, sat on a train to London. Anything could have happened, but we got picked up by nice people and taken to the train station. Taken to the from the train station, taken to the police station. Again, some people just came into my life. Yeah. They were the good guys, not the bad guys. Took me to the police station. We got found out to North London. Magical thinking. You know, the copper who spoke to us was he could have been absolutely, you know, he could give me dog's breath. He could have absolutely tore my hair off, right? But he was magical. Changed my life. Anna Gilchrist. Keezy, come and stay with us. And it was magical. You know, anything could have happened, but no, she took a shine to us. The Gillies took us in. I'm still good friends with the Gillies. Yeah. Neil, Steve, and Dawn, they're the kids of my age group. And then, like you said, Sutton Mackenzie, magical. I mean, he's a sergeant. Yeah. Transactional. He didn't have to be transformational in my life, but he gained through my life. And I found out in life, things always turn out all right in the end. Yeah. You know, sunny side up. It's got to be all right in the end.
Matt, I can see that you were nodding there when Kriss was saying, you know, it'll be all right on the night. And can you relate to this or?
So it's basically Hakuna Matata, isn't it? No worries.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been my entire life. Is very much a cup half full. And there's always, even in the worst situations, you find the silver lining. My partner's she gets stressed very easily. And so let's say we're late for somewhere and we're in the car and we're driving somewhere and there's traffic. There's nothing you can do about it, but I can see her getting wound up. And I'm like, well, we can only go as fast as we can go. So why not? It's gonna take us a certain amount of time to get there anyway. So why not enjoy that time rather than just being stressed all that time? That time doesn't decrease or increase. It's that time. So a lot of it is just a choice. Just calm down. We can enjoy this. It doesn't need to be a stressful situation. And I find that's my approach for everything that I do in life is it'll be okay. And if it isn't, we'll deal with it then, almost. Because there's no point in preempting that it's gonna fail or it's gonna be a stressful situation, because you almost can never remember what the word is, but you always make that happen because you've started it off. Like you've started to think. Exactly. Yeah.
So is this kind of that mentality, is this the reason why you got into free running? Because that isn't the kind of thing, you know, jumping off buildings or doing these kind of stunts is certainly not something that I would ever consider. I think you have to be a certain type of person. Yeah, you could put it that way, Kriss.
If you really think about it, there isn't a type of person that does it, because we all did it as kids. So when people say, when did you start free running? I say to them, when did you stop? Because there is a certain point where you start listening to the adults telling you to get down off that wall because you're going to break your neck. I just didn't stop. I just didn't listen to them, and I carried on. So it really took a grip when I was in school, when I was about 14, 15, and a friend of mine. I'd come back from the shop from lunch and seen a mate of mine, Rob, doing free running and flips on the school field. And at the time, I'd done a little bit of trampolining and things like that. So I went up and asked him if he could teach me how to backflip. And within 25, 30 minutes, he taught me how to backflip on the floor, on the grass, basically, on the school field. He then said, well, stay on the bus and don't get off at your stop, get off at mine after school, and I'll introduce you to this guy. He's really good and he's a nice guy, and, you know, we'll get some training in, basically. And this guy turned out to be one of the most influential parkour, like they call them tracers, in the world. Guy called Daniel Illerbacher. And from then on, that was my new kind of social group.
So take us to where you've left the military and you had your career plan, you had your life plan, but you're being medically discharged. Like, having spoken to so many veterans, you know, that is a tough place to be. Well,
so I've got quite a lot of family, military in the family. My auntie and uncle were both in the RLC. My sister was in the RLC. So it was a bit of a sore subject when I told them I wanted to go into the REME. It was hard for them to hear that I was coming out, basically. Yeah. And for me, it was a kind of, again, it's happening. There's nothing I can do about it. So, okay, I'll just take it on the chin and we'll crack on. I came out the army, and so the guy that I'd met when I was in school knew a team basically 20 minutes away from where my phase 2 was, and basically I got out of the army and I've been training with them, and they basically said, well, we've got some work on if we know that you've coming out and you need the money or whatever. So and I was like, what? You're offering me like a job to do free running, get paid and stuff? And they were like, yeah, wow, sure. Like, they've been doing it for years, so it wasn't anything new to them. But for me, it was like, how I couldn't have been any luckier, basically. It was the best time of my life. Traveling around the world with your best friends, getting paid to do phys, PE, and getting to explore the world. Unbelievable. Like, it's literally the dream. When you have that, I felt like I was living the dream that I had as a child, is to be that action star. I'd fulfilled the weapons side of it really in my head, and it was the next step which fell into my lap. It was living the life of adrenaline, basically, and obviously, like, I find adrenaline, and majority of people find adrenaline to be very, very addictive, and it was rather than me going to search it out, it was being handed it to me. So take us to the day of your accident, or take us to the accident. What happened? That day I'd met a big group of lads that were riding from Manchester to Portmarnock, and this was at the Ponderosa Cafe. And I typically ride by myself because I end up waiting for people, and it also allows me not to concentrate on what anybody else is doing. It's my day, I'm in my element, and I'll go off, kind of thing. But that day I was like, well, you know, I consider myself a nice guy. I'll take you to wherever you're going, because I know you're following a sat nav. You're all bikers, so I know what your basic mentality is anyway. So I was like, well, you know, I'll show you the way. We rode down from the cafe to the petrol station, filled up, and then basically got on our way. And about 20 minutes later, me and another guy were basically ahead of the pack and enjoying the roads. And I'm very wary of where he is behind me because he's quite close. And as I've checked my mirror, and I've come back, the corner's basically in front of me, and I haven't prepared at all for it. It's caught me off, and I went to go for the corner because obviously I'm just going to go straight through the hedge, and I think I just committed full commitment basically. My weight was wrong on the bike. The weight was wrong through the tyres. My centre of gravity was too high. And I think at the last moment I might have panicked and touched the front brake. And you don't touch the front brake round corners on a bike because you come off. Yeah, cool. But I think my instinct just kicked in and I wanted to slow the bike down. Both tyres left the tarmac. And because I'd crashed a couple of times prior to this, I knew exactly what was going on when the tarmac was sliding up my right hand side. My hands were still on the bars, my feet were still on the pegs, my bum was still in the seat, and it took me a thousandth of a second to realise that I was sliding down the tarmac. And all I could see was just dust and stones bouncing up. All the different kinds of smells you associate with basically a car garage, rubber, oil, except it was all spraying at me and all over the road. The next thing I know, I'm lying on my side, about 100 feet away from my bike. My arm is behind my back, my shoulder's underneath my chin, and I know that my arm's going dead basically. I'm losing the feeling in my fingers, and I can see the lads all running up. And I know that I just need them to lift me up. I've got pain down my legs and then my back and stuff, but I don't feel as if I've really done substantial damage to my back. I was wrong, but I asked them to lift me up a couple of times and they were like, you need to stay still because we don't know what injuries you've got. But I knew that if I didn't move, I'm losing this arm, and I don't want it to happen basically. So they picked me up and I slid my arm around, and then I was comfortable then. I'd landed in the recovery position minus my arm. So I was lying on my side, basically just cradling my arm, and that's when I realised that I'd broken both my legs. I'd shattered my ankle. I had pain around my pelvis and my lower back. So I was like, well, I've either fractured my pelvis or I've broken my lower back. An off-duty nurse stopped and she wouldn't tell me her name. I don't know why, whether she thought I wasn't going to make it or not. She wouldn't give me her number, but she was, I hope she's listening to this now, just out of some sort of, freakness.
Or magical thinking, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. So she helped. She stopped and helped, and she was basically a mum figure. Really helped me. Rapid response, ambulance arrived. He couldn't do anything. He was just a kid. And then for an hour and a half, I kept getting told that the ambulance is 10 minutes away. So I was lying on the tarmac for 90 minutes without any pain medication. When the ambulance finally arrived, they gave me morphine. And it's a really crappy time to figure out that you have a high resistance to painkillers. So the morphine went straight through me, didn't touch the sides. The air ambulance, Helimed, arrived an hour after that, and they basically put me on a spinal board, put my legs in splints, and gave me ketamine. And ketamine just took me to a different dimension. I thought I was dead, basically. I remember being in a room or a reality where I could hear voices and no physics made sense at all. I couldn't work out what was up or down, and I was like, great, you've killed yourself and you haven't said goodbye to anybody. Like this is it. You can't go back. This is it now, mate. And I was livid. The that I'd been so selfish and such an idiot, basically. And there was no making amends.
Wow, gosh. And then clearly the realization happened that you were in you're in a hospital, but you still had your foot then. You know, you're clearly very injured, but, you know, I know you as a single leg amputee, but what happened? What's the story there?
So I woke up in a A&E med bay, and my family all around the bed, and the doctor comes in and tells me exactly what I've done. I remember he came in and he's like, so there's some good news and there's some bad news. And I said to him, I'm ex-forces, doc, just give it to me, don't sugarcoat it, because I can take things straight. And he said, well, you've broken both your legs, you've got bilateral compound tibia and fibula fractures, you've also shattered your ankle. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? He said, well, there's basically no saving it. 80% of the bone is completely destroyed. And apparently the paramedics said that I'd left some of that on the road next to my bike, which is a bit grim. And basically what they wanted to do was to remove what was left of my ankle. And then that would produce a gap of about 10 centimetres from the bottom of my leg to the top of my foot. And then they were, over the course of 2 years, with a massive external cage on, they were going to grow the bones down and then fuse it to my ankle, basically. Fuse it to my foot. I wouldn't have an ankle, and I'd have 20 degrees of movement in it. And I'm not really a compromising kind of guy. You either do it or you don't do it. Everything's I try and live my life very black and white. And to me, that was like, well, why are we spending so much time, effort and energy and money trying to fix something we all know is never going to work again? And in 5 years' time, I'm going to ask to have it amputated anyway, because it's causing me so much grief and pain. And they saw that as well. You're still in shock. You're still on loads of meds. Let's just can we do the surgery? And then it'll give you time to think. And I was like, you know what? I'm fed up of arguing. Just do what you want to do. And I'll make my decision up in a few days' time or whatever. So I went in surgery that night. It was supposed to be 8 hours, where they took skin grafts from my thighs and a blood vessel to basically cover the holes in my legs where the bones are broken and passed through. And I came out 14 hours later. It took me a week to get over the anaesthetic, because of how much it took to keep me under, especially when they'd only really scheduled it for 8 hours. And then they've kind of got the anaesthetist in to say, well, this is what we're going to have to do to keep him under.
And they kept your leg, though?
Yeah, so they kept my leg. They took all the bones. They took basically all the broken stuff out and cleared it all up. I didn't have a rod down my left leg at that point. And I had two big external cages down both legs, okay. X-braces they were called. It was a week later where I'd been spending the week trying to talk to as many people as possible. Even there was a therapy person on my ward that got a amputee to come in and speak to me, which was really, really helpful. And basically my main tribulation was about phantom pain, and how bad it can be and how constant, basically. But it differs for everybody, so that's just kind of a risk you take. Obviously, I didn't really know what it was either, so I had that kind of in the back of my mind. But it was a Tuesday, and my surgeon came in, Mr. McFadden, South African guy. I used to call him the wizard because of how much of a mess I was in and how much he could fix, basically. And he said, have you made a decision about your leg? So I said, yeah. He said, I want it amputated. So he said, sooner or later? And I said, sooner. And this was like 8 o'clock in the morning. He says, well, I've got a spot at 1 o'clock this afternoon if you want it. And I was like, it took me back because it's what I wanted. I've been waiting a week for this, and it'd been dilly-dallying all week. And then finally someone was there with basically a box to tick. And And I was like, well, it's what I want. Okay, I'm a bit kind of, ooh, this is the moment. I just said, book me in. Because if I didn't say it then, I probably would never say it ever again. And then once I've said yes to anything, I'm doing it. And I've made my mind up. So I went in 1 o'clock, came out at 7. As soon as the doctor ticked the box, I texted mum and dad and said, I'm going down for the amputation today. He's just come in. Can you be there when I come out, basically? So I woke up and I was on my hospital bed and they wheeled me up to my ward, basically back to my bay. And my mum and dad were stood by the window. And I remember being sat up and basically came in on my hospital bed and I went like this. And basically just waved my stump at them like.
I mean, Matt,
and they were made up.
That is incredible. And I think really what I sort of take from that is your mindset is, you know, you took essentially like the emotion away from it and you were just like, I just need to make this decision for me. And maybe actually, okay, the surgeon agreed in the end, but you took control. And I'm sort of, you know, Kriss, like your Olympic career, like is insane. You know, it's absolutely incredible what you achieved. Did in a similar way, you went on to go and achieve all these incredible things at quite, particularly when you got into hurdles, at quite a sort of old age. I mean, 28, I'd love to be 28, but in athletics, that is quite old. What do you think was key to your success?
So I will answer that, Alice, what's key to my success. But Matt, thanks so much for that story there. And also the way you dealt with it. I just love that little ending there about waving your stump in my leg and waving. And that's such a typical squaddie mentality.
Squaddie, black humour.
Yeah, there's
dark humour,
yeah. But because I remember there was a guy called Frog, and he was an athlete, an army athlete, and he went to the Falklands. He went to the Falklands, and he stood an ID and was rolling over, and you know, my leg, I lost my leg, and the bloke said, no, you haven't followed, it's over there. And it's just how the squaddies deal with it, just the way Matt just, you know, and I think, you know, that's something to take away, really. I know it's all about resilience, but you know, the way Matt dealt with it, it's absolutely traumatic and devastating, and I can't imagine being in that scenario, and yet, what you just did that, yeah, that's exactly how I'll deal with it. It's just 100% how a squaddie would deal with it. You know what I mean? Tick the box, done deal. Yo, mum, I'm all right. It's just.
And for those who are listening and not watching this, Matt just took off his leg and then just waved his stump at us.
It's just amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing. So look. I had a great career as a quarter miler at first. And when I was speaking with research with Hannah, I mean, I mentioned her name, but you know, I don't know with Hannah, I spoke about, there was this coincidence of my change in athletic career from being a sprinter 400 metre to 400 hurdler and my sort of Christian faith. And I was like this on fire Christian between, well, I'll give you the date, 30th of April 1987, until I lost it in 97, my faith in 97. And again, it was like a childlike faith, you know, the root word of confidence is with faith, you know, and a trust in things unseen and what you wish for and hope for. And I was really confident in this omniscient, omnipresent, all-knowing God. So all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing God. And I really, really believed in my heart of hearts, and I still can never get rid of the experience where I felt that I met Jesus in a dream, and he said, "Come unto me, all those who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." And I gave my life to him, and I was in an apartment with Roger. I went, Roger, I met Jesus last night.
As in Roger Black.
Roger Black, yeah. So.
Another childhood hero of mine. I'm like, whoa, I loved him.
And then I went down to the track, and the Daly was there. Daly Thompson, Edwin Moses was there, and all these other athletes. I met Jesus last night. Daly Akabusi, you on drugs, son. I must be on drugs more powerful than that. But I met Jesus, and and so I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that experience. But why I told you that is that you are right. I made this decision because Roger Black and Derek Redmond were these quarter milers that were just kicking my butt as a quarter miler, and I knew I couldn't make the British team as a quarter miler. So I made this decision to go to the 400 meter hurdles. And everyone goes, Akabusi, you're mad. You're 28. Old dogs don't learn new tricks. But I really did believe it was my calling. I really believed that God had called me to be this athlete, to run for his glory, to spread his word. And when you know, Matt says when he made that decision, he stuck that decision. You know, I believe that once I knew God had me in his hand, right and left hand, he would never let me go. That he would make it possible for me to express myself in my athletic ability and give him the glory. And, you know, within a year, changing from the 400 to the hurdles, I was number one in the UK, and I was at the World Championships running the final. I came 7th in the final, but it's like, I was there. And everyone think, well, how did that happen? Childlike belief.
Yeah.
Totally committed.
Yeah. Well, something that's always, I'd love to know is, do you have a routine when you're, you know, just on the morning of, or when you're in them starting blocks, you know, what's going through your mind? Because like whenever I was getting told I was going on a fighting patrol or something like that, you know, my headphones go on, I'd listen to AC/DC as loud as I can, smash a can of Monster, get myself right in the mood. Someone's going to have it. You know, someone's getting it. Someone out there is getting it. You know, what was your sort of, you know, mindset when you're in them blocks?
So when it's in the blocks, right, okay. So athletics is a great experience. It's very objective. You know, it doesn't matter what colour you are, anything. When you get to the line, it's a clear target, absolute clarity, and if you win, you're the best.
Yeah.
And a series of things would go through my mind as an athlete. I mean, I was awful. I couldn't eat very well. I wasn't very good at eating the morning of. You know,
right.
Everything would be sort of going off inside of me.
Okay.
But I would, like you said, have my tunes on, get in the warm-up zone. And I know I'm quite trappy, but actually, when it comes to athletics, I am the reverse.
Yeah.
I've got very, very internalised in my own space. Then you go into this sort of room where they check your details, look at your number, check your spikes. So that's a great period because there's only 8 of you there. Right. 8 people that are going to go fighting for it. And then you go through this tunnel into the auditorium, and the people are baying. It feels like they're baying for blood, and you sense whether they're for you or against you.
Yeah.
Then you go and you do your little starts, and then the guy goes, "Gentlemen, tracksuits off, please." And again, without being rude, sphincter moments. You're absolutely bricking it, and you spent all your life wanting to be here, and then you don't want to be here, and you take your kit off. Do or die, there is no try. And then for me, my trigger word was Geronimo. And Geronimo meant, let's just empty yourself of everything and just be calm in a moment. Bam! And then you just bam, before you know it, it's just like, you're out, you're just doing it, you're just bam! You're out the blocks, it's all happening first, the crash. Yeah. And then it's just automatic. And then all of your training. And like you said, Stuart and Matt, you know, we train for a combat scenario.
Yeah.
I know. I've never been in a combat scenario, but I know I'd have been a good soldier. Yeah. I know that my brick would be all right. I would have taken care of everybody. You know, if I had to go over there, I'd go over there. Childlike faith, muck and bullets, doesn't really matter. I'm going there, I'm going to do what I've got to do. And if I cop one, I wouldn't know about it. I'd be gone. But as long as I'm not gone, I will be just automatic pilot, doing all the stuff I've got to do, and I would have been a good soldier. When it comes to a do or die situation, I've got this ability to block out everything else and have that myopic focus in the here and now on what matters and just go. And in an athletic scenario, I was one of those fortunate individuals that when it really mattered, say like the Olympics or the World Championships, I was able to access that space and always to give that extra 10%, what I'd call being anti-fragile. When I go into that space, I'm anti-fragile. I will give the best of myself when I get into that space. And I don't have to think about it, manufacture it. It just is.
So do you think this removal of emotion, well, I think it's served both of you really well. Like, Kriss, you wouldn't have achieved what you've achieved, you know, throughout your career, particularly within athletics. And Matt, I don't know, but I'm again assuming that you wouldn't have achieved and been so successful as you have been within free running and within your career as well. But has this sort of being able to cut out the emotion ever hindered you or had a negative impact on anyone else?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I mean, from my time in the children's home, time through the military, time through my sport, I've had to, or my coping strategy was to become very self-centered and be very, well, what got me going there is this thing about the emotions. Because I think that, yes, I have developed an ability, and I think this has been nurtured, because I think deep down, I am an emotional guy, and I'm a sentient guy and a sensitive guy. But I think that was the casualty of my time in the children's home. And then in the army, and I love my time in the army, but I don't know what it's like now, but in my day, it was a tough place. But I had to be a little bit Teflon. I had to be a little bit, you can't let, what I want to say, silly things, and not the important things in now, but silly things get at you. You've got to be able to man up. Now, the negative side of that is, when it came to things like my family or my significant other, like I live with my Jack Jones, I live with my Jack Jones because no one can live with me, because, nothing's going to faze me. You can't emotionally bully me. Now, I'm saying, even if I say it sounds like I'm being proud, I'm not, because I think what it's done, it's destroyed my ability to relate intimately with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can relate to that, like, spot on, because, so before my crash, I was, again, I was very self-centered. I was only focused on myself, and I through this whole rehabilitation process, including my mind as well, I've figured out that I was a very, very apathetic person. But in the same way as you, I consider myself to be quite a sensitive guy, and I'll cry at films. And when it comes down to me and my feelings, I understand them, and I can almost let them flow and go with the flow. But when it comes to other people, I struggle to relate to them when it comes to me understanding how they're feeling about something, to the point where it's ruined relationships in the past. And I've only just realised what was the contributing factor to all of that. And it was not being able to be emotionally intimate with that person. And that's something now that I have to kind of sit down, and if I'm in a situation, a position where I can see things are developing and I'm getting uncomfortable, and it calls for almost me to take a step back and try and understand why, what emotion I should be feeling then, and why I should be feeling it, because that will help me understand. If I don't do that, I'm just not present in the situation at all, or I completely bypass it and it ends up in a full-blown argument, basically.
Yeah, fabulous. Wow. Yeah, I'll give you. I mean, I that last bit there about I can see something's wrong, I can feel my cogs turning. Okay, what am I supposed to do? And then one of the fears are, oh, hang on, am I being emotionally manipulated here? Am I going to be, and so no. He, or it could be even my children. Oh no, they need help. Okay, what can I do? It's all very clunk, 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 clunk.
Yeah, it's quite tiring as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you? Do any of you seek like any professional help for it at all? Or have you in the past or anything like that? Because it's
after my crash, they I was basically asked if I wanted CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy, and I knew I was a strong guy in my head, and I knew all the decisions that I made were my decisions. There was no regrets, and it was just bish bash bosh. But then I thought, well, at the end of the day, it can't hurt to just sit in a room and talk to somebody for an hour or so once a week. And that's how I came to kind of stumble across the fact that I was apathetic and I struggled with emotion, and why I have trouble emotionally understanding other people, and it helped me to identify who I was, because that's something I really struggled with up until the crash. Basically, was who I was and why I make the decisions that I make, not just because of why you want to get to there's a goal you want to reach, or there's a standard, or whatever. But it helped me understand why how my brain processes how to get there without the lack of emotion. And what I found was that if I'm dealing with people, so when it comes to decision making, when I'm dealing with people, I need to get myself into that headspace of, okay, emotion needs to be considered. Whether it's a decision with myself, I don't need to have any emotion even relevant in the conversation, because it only hinders me, but it helps the situation if it's with somebody else.
I mean, Kriss, just sort of in response to that, do you ever feel like two people almost, the athlete Kriss and then the social Kriss? Is there some, because it sounds from what you're saying, it's almost like you go into two different personalities or two different zones.
So, Alice, I've got to admit, the athlete Kriss is long gone. Yeah. The athlete Kriss and the military Kriss, both of them have formed the contemporary Kriss. However, yes, the answer is, do I feel like a couple of people? Yeah, there's a plethora of selves inside of me. There is very much the manufactured, branded Kriss that everyone sees. And there's a guy there called Keezy. And Keezy's the little boy who's emotionally insecure. Kriss has done a great gig. Kriss has really looked after Keezy. He's made sure that house over your head, food, all that sort of stuff. He's a front-facing guy, neat and tidy, arrives on time, delivers. Keezy's all over the place, 6 sheets to the wind, a little bit more, certainly emotionally truncated. But is the vitality and the energy and the virtuosity that all comes from Keezy, because Keezy doesn't really care. Keezy just goes. He just does it. Do you know what I mean? He's like riding a horse with Keezy. He's like, whoa, Kriss, sort him out, hold him back.
Keezy sounds great.
But he's a pain in the backside. That's the guy to Mr. Moses.
Yeah, on the back of the barnet.
Exactly.
I like it.
And obviously Keezy is your birth name, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the name my mother gave me.
Yeah. Keezy
Uche Chukuduru. So that's a mouthful. So Kriss was good when you were in the army, because I ain't saying the rest of it, trust me.
Matt, last time we left, can you tell us a little bit more about your recovery, please? Because we left you with the amputated leg. Can you tell us what happened next, please, mate?
To be fair, the amputation was the easy part. The other leg was the issue, because I had bilateral compound tib fib fractures, so I'd broken both the bones in both my legs, basically. And it was having to have the rod in that. And because that was the one that I was weight bearing on, basically, for maybe 4 or 5 months before, obviously in between the accident and me getting a prosthetic leg. So the main issue was just dealing with that. But then when I finally got my leg, it got into a point where I was healing up pretty fast. I was putting the weight back on, the strength was developing. But when I got into my the limb centre where I did the physio, Clatterbridge, because the majority of the people that go into the limb centres are and they're amputees and they go in for prosthesis, typically they're older. They haven't lost limbs through trauma. It's been through diabetes or some sort of medical condition. When I walked in, it was almost like a breath of fresh air for them, because they had to think about the demands of my rehab, basically, because all the exercises that they would get the elderly people to do, or the older people, I kind of fly through. And then it got to a point where they were being really creative when it came to my rehab, which was really lovely to see.
Didn't you set a most amazing target? I can imagine most people in that situation would be like, oh, I just want to walk again on my prosthetic leg. But you set yourself the most amazing challenge.
Yeah, so when I was in hospital, I was as far away from me as I could have ever been. And I wanted that essence back. So I set myself a goal of 12 to 18 months. 18 months being basically 2020, New Year. So this New Year, basically, I think, of landing a backflip on the floor again as an amputee. And in my head, I was going to do it with a leg or without a leg. So I think I went to the gym to see where I was at, basically. This was like end of November, start of December, the same year I had my crash. So it was 4 or 5 months post-crash. And I stood on the end of the foam pit, and my brain was telling me, this feels exactly the same. You got your prosthetic leg on. You basically just lost a foot. And all my muscle memory was going, just do it, you'll be fine. You've done this thousands of times before. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to my instincts. They're usually right. So I went for it, had no strength at all in my core, my hip flexors or my legs. I over-rotated, but my feet hit the floor and I basically carried on going and ended up spraining my left ankle and twisted my knee in my prosthetic, and it was so painful I ended up going back to A&E and just getting it x-rayed in case I'd shifted the rod down my leg, or I'd done something to my stump, or fractured that or something like that. So I was really worried. So that was basically a bit of a reality check to say, okay, you're starting at the bottom. There isn't any cheating or skipping steps here, and you need to tick every single box when it comes to learning how to backflip again. I can't just jump in at the middle and carry on. I have to start off on the trampoline, just doing back drops, seat drops, front drops, and then basically progressing little by little and ticking all the boxes off until I could finally get to a point where I'd stood on hard ground with no sprung floor, no assists other than the aid of a prosthetic leg, if you can call it an aid in that respect. And then it was a year to the month that I landed my first backflip on the floor.
Wow.
So July 2019.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
And
Well, congratulations.
yeah,
that is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So to you both now, our final question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? And if you can let us know sort of how old that younger self is, or where they are or where you are in your life. Who'd like to go first?
I'm happy to go.
Okay, Kriss.
I would say to the 12-year-old boy, it's going to be a wonderful journey. You're going to meet wonderful people. Don't worry. Be not happy, not because that's no, but don't worry. Be happy, and that's a cliche. But don't worry. You are happy. Be happy, exactly. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, mate. Don't worry about anything. Just live your life, and it's going to be a good ride. It's going to be a good ride, son. It's going to be a good ride. You're going to be fine. You're going to be all right. You're going to make it.
You're going to smash it.
You're going to be a legend, mate. You're going to be a legend. Don't you worry, son. Don't you worry.
Yeah. I couldn't say that to him, but yeah, don't worry, but you're going to be all right. You're going to do just fine.
And Matt, how about you?
Yeah, probably the same age. High school era, GCSEs are coming up. Probably nothing's final. Nothing ever just ends. So again, like Kriss said, don't worry. Take in as much knowledge as you can. Experience the experiences you have with 100% intensity. And just always be in the moment, because that's where you learn the most.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you to you both so much.
Yeah.
Kriss Akabusi and Mat Armitage. It's been an absolute pleasure. Coming up next week, we talk to former NASA astronaut and commander of the International Space Station, Steve Swanson, and veteran and Making Generation R speaker, Jack Cummings. Also, don't forget, we are releasing a remastered episode from Series 1 every Thursday. This week, we hear from Paralympian and politician Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson and veteran Nerys Pearce. Thank you to my co-host Stuart Harris and everyone in our production team. This podcast was generously funded by Blesma, the Limbless Veterans charity, delivered by the Drive Project, supported by Facebook, and presented by me, Alice Driver, creator of the Making Generation R campaign. Huge thanks go to Sai Harmer, whose idea lit the torch paper of this podcast, and to you for listening.
If you've been affected by any of the issues discussed, then please take a look at our webpage or show notes, where you'll be able to find more information on support services.
Should you like to listen to any of the veterans' incredible stories, then they are available as part of this podcast series on the Making Generation R website. The Resilience Sessions grew out of the Making Generation R campaign, a project that trains injured veterans from Blesma to tell their stories, so far to over 100,000 people, from the young and vulnerable to frontline services and first responders across the UK. To find out more about Making Generation R and to book a free talk or workshop if you're a school, just Google Making Generation R.
If you've enjoyed listening today, then please do subscribe. Give us a 5-star review and share it with your family and friends. You never know who it might help.